Tattoo artists, who was your worst tattoo virgin? Had a customer that wanted a little watermelon slice on his thigh. Cool 5 to 10 minute nice and easy first tattoo. Nope, on the third line I hear this weird little low-pitched moan. Look up and his head flipped back and the rest of him followed. When he woke up on the floor to 3 guys trying to pull him back up, he said something along the lines of, "What the freak, why are you guys touching me? That's gay." It's been 3 or 4 years since then and he still hasn't come back in to get it finished. If I didn't know better, I feel like that would be a comedy skit on YouTube. This old lady, maybe late 50s, early 60s, comes into our shop. She's quite timid as she approaches the front desk. I say hello and ask what we can do for her. We'll call her AB. "I've never had a tattoo before." "That's fine. It's not as scary as you think. What is it that you want done today?" "Well, my boyfriend is finally letting me have a tattoo." I had a shocked look on my face. "But I just wanted something small and out of the way. So if I change my mind, I don't have to look at it too often." "Okay, that's fair. What is it that you wanted?" "I want Andy's B written on my hoo-ha." Nope. We didn't do the tattoo. It was either some horribly controlling partner that wanted her branded with his name, or some BDSM kink that I didn't consent to be a part of. Screw that. I've heard horror stories about women getting branded with tattoos for illegal purposes. Scary stuff. Also, if I was the tattoo artist who was talking to this lady, I would have been like, "Hey, yo!" Girl comes in to get her ex-boyfriend's name tattooed as a tramp stamp. Comes in with friends and proceeds to scream throughout the process of doing the outline. And she leaves with half of an outline of her ex's name. Why would anyone ever tattoo their ex's name on themselves? Kid wanted to get a full sleeve as his first ever tattoo. I convinced him to get a smaller tattoo for his first ever. Now this sounds like an exaggeration, but he proceeded to throw up after 5 seconds. Dude, I made the similar mistake for my first tattoo. Got a half sleeve on my upper arm. After the line work was done, I had to take a break. Didn't puke though. The rest, a complex solid black design, had to be broken up into a few separate sessions because it hurt far more than I thought it would. Fortunately, my artist was a saint. I dated a tattoo artist for a couple of years and spent a good chunk of time at the shop. One time, a girl we knew from school came in for a large tattoo on her ribs. I think it was some flowers. Anyways, everything is set up, she's stenciling and laying on the chair just chatting and waiting. As soon as the needle hits her skin, she starts screaming bloody murder, moaning and begging him to stop. So he stops, shocked, and she tells him, in her normal voice, to ignore her and keep going. Screaming fit proceeds. Every so often he stops to check if she was alright, and she responds in a normal, cheerful tone that she's excited to see how the work turns out. Needle hits skin, back to screaming like she's being eaten by a pack of wolves. I watched a couple of people walk into the shop and turn around and walk right out. I'm surprised cops didn't show up. Anyways, I think he only got the outlines and some shading done before he couldn't deal with it anymore, and said something about scheduling another session because he had another client coming in. She never came back to get it finished. That's so weird. This type of story seems to be reoccurring in this thread. It's like people have split personalities when it comes to pain or something. That, or she just really liked the pain, if you know what I mean. A friend who never had a tattoo before wanted one on her ankle and was adamant about that. I told her several times that the ankle is a very not fun location, and I asked her if maybe she would prefer something on the shoulder instead. She insisted on the ankle. Okay then. The moment the needle touched her, she hollered. "You sure you want to keep going?" I asked. She said yes. That was the loudest appointment I've ever had, but to her credit, she made it through. Oh wow, reading this thread is bringing up so many repressed client memories. My worst one by far though was about 5 years ago when I was apprenticing in a college town. This girl came in with her boyfriend for a traditional butterfly above her elbow. I was super new, so it took me way longer than it should have. Maybe 2 hours? I lay her down on her stomach with her arm bent to her side. This is relevant later. Anyways, we start tattooing, and within 10 minutes, she started getting a string of text messages from her freshman friends, telling her they're essentially ousting her from their friend group, and they don't want her to contact them ever again. Super mean stuff. Obviously, she's upset, and she's relating all of this to her boyfriend. She starts crying, and then full-on sobbing. I asked her if she wanted to stop, and she insisted on me continuing, and I just felt too awkward to counter her. She continued to sob on and off for probably another hour, while I just kept plugging away at this dumb little tattoo. At this point, she has cried so much that her tears have gathered where her arm was pressed against the massage table, and they had started to spill over into my lap. So I'm feeling uncomfortable as hell and now also damp. Then, as I'm within 30 minutes or so of finishing, she begins whimpering, then moaning, loudly. At one point, she tells the BF, "This is more intense than hooking up where the sun don't shine." And I wanted to die. As soon as I finished and checked her out, my coworkers, who had all been waiting for me to close, were like, "What the actual crap was going on? Why did you keep going?" But in that moment, all I could think of was to finish that tattoo as soon as possible. To her credit, she came back a year later and told me that she had been too embarrassed to come back, but that she loved the butterfly and wanted another tattoo from me. Her second session was pleasant and without incident. Dude, you deserve a medal for sitting through all of that. What a 180. So she was technically never a client, but I had a teenage girl, about 16 years old, come in once. She wanted a tattoo of a rose on the side of her neck. Now, I'm certainly not going to ever entertain a neck tattoo for a teenager, period, but she didn't even bother to bring in a parent with her to sign for her. So it went from a certain no to an absolutely never in a million years. She got pretty upset and made a scene in the front area, and I told her to leave. After a lot of arguing, she finally left, but not before making an idle threat. Other than sharing the story with my coworkers over drinks later and having a laugh at her audacity, I think no more of it. Until the following week, when an incredibly angry middle-aged woman comes barging into the shop screaming how she's going to have us all shut down and sent to jail. Everybody in the shop was pretty confused, and after we got her to stop screaming at all of us, we finally got out of her why she was so angry. Apparently, her daughter went out and got a neck tattoo without her knowledge. It was around then that I recognized the girl from the week before peeking into the front window. It all clicked. She had found some sketchy artist in a kitchen to tattoo the rose on her neck that I said no to. I told the mother to call her daughter in, and her daughter pointed at me and told her mom that I was the one who did it. The tattoo was terribly done, to say the least, so the mom definitely had several reasons to be livid. She started getting upset again and yelling about how she was going to get me fired and sent to jail, etc. I let her yell until she calmed down enough to listen. Then I explained to her how the week before I told her daughter outright that I would not give her a neck tattoo. Her daughter screamed that I was a liar, and mom started up with another round of yelling, this time about how I was calling her daughter a liar. It was around this time that I just decided to point at our CCTV camera in the front area until the mother noticed what I was doing and stopped. I told her if she would like to, she could review the footage of me denying her daughter, the temper tantrum, and then her daughter leaving the shop. We usually keep footage for about a week or two and then we delete it, so I knew it should still be on the computer. Her daughter started looking pretty nervous around this time, but she didn't say anything. Meanwhile, I find the footage from that day, and the mom watches the entire interaction that I described go down. Then, with the coldest look of anger, betrayal, and disappointment, she turns to her daughter, she takes her outside of the shop quietly, and then screams at her outside for basically everything that just happened and how humiliating it had all been. After a bit, the daughter comes in and gives me a very sarcastic apology and then leaves. Now at this time, I was still willing to tattoo minors with parental consent, but I had been having a lot of crappy dealings with them and occasionally with their parents. I had been considering a no minor at all policy, but this experience solidified that in my mind. Aside from one or two exceptions, I haven't tattooed any minors for the last 13 years. I'm always surprised that you could or can get a tattoo underage with guardian consent. Stuff like that almost always feels like an outdated rule only put in place for child brides. Well, I got a piercing while I was underage, nose piercing when I was 17. I'm Indian American, so it's more traditional for us to have nose piercings at young ages. And also I convinced my mom to let me get one if I had a certain score on my ACT. It was surprisingly hard to do. The shop I went to refused to pierce me unless I brought my mom and my actual birth certificate. Like they wouldn't accept a passport or driver's license. I had to bring my actual birth certificate. It was wild. This girl's first tattoo, and she was my first paying customer. I tattooed people for free during my apprenticeship. She wanted a star outline on the side of her heel below her ankle. She was a bit nervous, so I allowed two of her friends to come in with us in the room. I started the tattoo and she immediately jerked away super hard. I warn her not to do that and try to relax. I continue and she jerks her foot again. The 2 lines I've done now look like crap, and I'm already pissed and freaking out inside. I got her 2 friends to hold down her foot and she continues to jerk around, and at one point kicks me right in the jaw. Needless to say, her tattoo looked like crap, and I was certainly crestfallen. I called my mentor after work crying that I had ruined my first tattoo on my client, and she kicked me in the face, which he said, "Wait, what? Nah, screw that. That's not your fault. I'll see you tomorrow at work." Been tattooing for 13 years now, and I still love every minute of it. Got way crazier stories under my belt since that kick in the face. Whoa, you're not allowed to end with "I got way crazier stories under my belt, please share more." Fine, I'll share a few that aren't too long, but they still pack a punch. My first PP tattoo I ever did was on a man that you would never expect at first glance. Some background, studio at the time was small with a shared space among a few tattoo artists. Salon style. This person was a polite young white man who showed up looking like Mr. Rogers, sweater vest and all. He was scheduled to get his first tattoo, a name on the hip. Don't get names of lovers, people. I attempted to convince him that it's not a great idea, but he was adamant. Fine, whatever, I'll get set up. He comes back with his lady, and I ask him to show me exactly where he wants the tattoo. He shimmies his pants down so that the base of his peepee is showing and points there. Whoa! I again try to convince him not to do this, going as far to call him stupid and admitting I've never tattooed a peepee before. He is begging me to do it. Normally, I would flatly refuse wiener tattoos in general, but I did want to try at some point, and he was very polite and not pervy. I told him that I would have to charge him more, and he agreed. He lied down with his pants half off. I wrote the name like I was writing a check. Finished so quickly that my coworkers didn't even notice that I tattooed a wiener. Sometimes I wonder if they are still together. Probably not. During my apprenticeship, my mentor consulted with a woman who wanted to get the ruins of her 2 husbands. Yes, plural. This lady was some gnarly redneck who was polyamorous and into some sort of BDSM lifestyle. One husband was this goatee white dude, the other was a black postal worker. Strange trio, but whatever floats your boat. The first red flag during the consulting was the lady asking, would you mind if my husbands put cigarettes out on my body while you tattoo me? My mentor refused for sanitary reasons and also what the freak reasons. He made me stay in the room for the appointment so he wouldn't be alone with them. Come tattoo time, all 5 of us are in the room, and the second the needle starts, of course, she starts moaning. I'm cringing inside. My mentor asks her to be quiet and not to move so much. She keeps moaning, and one of her husbands grabs her by the face and tells her to shut the freak up. The tattoo continues in painfully awkward silence. My mentor is no stranger to weird crap, but even he was freaked out. Last one. Early in my career, I submitted some work to a tattoo magazine since Instagram wasn't a thing yet. I sent them to a small part of the magazine where they share 1 photo per artist, but they called me and asked me if I was interested in doing an entire article. Jackpot! They interviewed me and asked for a photo of me as well as some of my work. I'm a female tattoo artist and this is relevant later. I submitted 1 photo of me tattooing wearing a t-shirt, not sexy, and it was quite modest. A few months later, the article comes out. Everything is cool until a couple of months after when I get a letter to the studio. Inside was a rambling letter about how they liked my work and wondering if I could offer some tips. It was from an inmate at the prison in another state. It dawned on me that prisons get tattoo magazines, and the article published my studio and address if someone wanted to get a tattoo from me. More creepy letters followed. One guy said that he was getting out in 4 months and wanted to take me out for a drink. The creepiest one came from a man whose entire face was covered in tattoos, rambled about how beautiful I was, and lamenting that he would never get out to meet me. Curious, I looked him up by his inmate number required on the envelope to see why he would never get out. Turns out, he murdered his girlfriend. Yeah, that's definitely not gonna get you a first date. My ex started screaming in pain. The needle wasn't even touching her yet. I was the tattoo virgin. Went in for my first piece, 5+ hours. Was obviously nervous, and I'm not great with needles. But as soon as we started, I was like, oh, this is way easier than I built it up to be. I'm feeling the pain, but I knew I'd be able to commit. After about 20 minutes later, I started to feel really dizzy. My vision is going, so I sit up. My tattoo artist stops immediately, and she's talking to me, but I can barely hear her. The world is closing in, and it's only getting worse. I think she asked me if I need to go to the bathroom, but I know I'll make it a step or two before passing out if I stand up. I can't tell her this because my brain is not working and speech is not an option. Then I just start gagging. The artist is scrambling for something to help me, but she is not fast enough. I vomit into my mask, my hands all over my dress, into my hair, and onto the floor. It's a mess. I'm a mess. I immediately feel better and go to the bathroom to clean up whilst the poor artist is wiping up the rest. I come back still stinking of vomit. I offer to take my dress off and literally sit there in my underwear while she finishes. She completes the tattoo like a champion. She sits with me in the vomit aura for another 5 hours. I am mortified and make sure I tip extra for the inconvenience, but the tat is stunning, so it was worth every minute. I'll bring a bucket next time just in case. Hey, no worries, I caught a girl who passed out getting a tiny wrist tattoo. Like, I physically caught her. I was in the shop with my sister. I had just finished my calves and was watching him tattoo my sister when I watched this girl wobble and caught her in my arms when she fell backwards off the stool. I literally thought to myself, wow, people really do pass out. All fun and games until I passed out while getting my thigh piece colored. It wasn't even the pain, just the heat, and I hadn't eaten. It was my 8th tattoo. I was so embarrassed, but apparently it happens all the time. I haven't thrown up yet, but I have to go finish that same piece, so it's a good chance that I might. But if I do, I'll come back here and emphasize it. I like to think I'm pretty good at handling pain, but I've never gotten a tattoo, so I don't think I'll ever be able to compare. Had a 19-year-old lad in the studio. He wanted Laura in large letters on his forearm. I took my time to quiz him. Turns out Laura was his sweetheart. I also spent a long time explaining that tattoos are for life and girlfriends come and go. He remained adamant and clearly explained that if I don't do it, he had a friend with a tattoo gun who would. So I did it, wrapped it up and explained aftercare. As he left, I checked the time. Great, 22 minutes to my next client. 22 minutes later, my client turned up on perfect time, followed less than a minute later by Mr. Loverboy. Apparently, he met Laura at the park who instantly dumped him for being so freaking stupid. It appears she didn't love him as much as he loved her. 22 minutes from tattoo to requesting a cover-up. I'll never understand name tattoos. I cringe when I think about planning my life together with somebody when I was 18 years old. I can only imagine cringing at the name of a former love interest tattooed on my body. One shop I worked at, we had a couple come in on the day we did $100 2-inch by 2-inch tattoos. They both were getting some small triceratops outline tattooed behind their ears. Nothing too crazy or detailed, so maybe about 15 minutes each in the chair at most. The guy was losing his mind. He's hyperventilating, laughing, jumping up and down, and yelling questions at us. Visually very nervous. He tells one of our apprentices that this is his first tattoo and keeps asking them how bad it hurts over and over again. The owner went into the back and grabbed an ammonia packet, worried that this guy would pass out the second the needle touched skin. Turns out it was the couple's first date. He had told her that he was very impulsive and she tried to call his bluff and suggest they get matching tattoos. To his credit, he got the tattoo and didn't pass out. Paid for both of them too. Bro, I hope they stayed together because if not, that might be worse than a girl taking a date for a free dinner. Have 2. I did piercings, but my friend was an artist at the shop we worked at. Had a girl come in, no ink, no piercing. She wanted to get, no joke, daddy's girl as a tramp stamp. She was in tears moments into the tattoo, like hysterically. She suffered through altogether probably 25 minutes and walked out with girl right above her waistline. 10 out of 10, hilarious. The other was a guy. He had a few small tats on his arms, nothing crazy. He was also one of those, I watch the UFC and wear tap out, don't mess with me types. He wanted a pretty large tribal chest piece, collarbone to collarbone. He was told that we recommend a couple of sessions. Them tats hurt. And this is a lot of outline and a lot of shading. He insisted no, that he could sit through the pain. He ended up fainting towards the end of his outline. I worked there for roughly a year after and he never came back to get it finished. I don't tap out, I just faint. Not a tattoo artist, but my friend tells this story that I had to share here. He just went to the pharmacy to get some prescriptions filled in North Carolina. They tell him it's going to take about an hour to fill and to come back later. So he walks out of the strip mall and the next place over is a tattoo shop. He goes in and asks for a random tattoo. They tell him it's going to take 15 minutes to do the drawing and 30 minutes to tattoo it on him. He asks what they can do right now instantly, and they tell him that they can pierce his nipples. Within an hour, he gets both his nips pierced, a pretty sweet tattoo, and his prescription filled all in one regular Tuesday afternoon. Not the worst client, but just an unfortunate event. The apprentice at my shop who had only been tattooing for a little under a year was tattooing this girl's wrist recently. Her first tattoo, the word undefeated. Gets the tattoo, it goes smoothly. She likes it, she walks to the lobby, shows her dad, he likes it too. Walks back to get bandaged up, gets bandaged, they walk back to the counter. As he's explaining aftercare, she blacks out, falls back, hits her head on a giant painting hanging on the wall, an Ed Hardy original. The painting falls and glass breaks. He runs over, picks her up, and is checking the back of her head. He realizes a giant piece of glass has punctured her shoulder/trap. EMTs come, tell her she needs stitches, and they end up having to take her to the emergency room where she gets 6 stitches. The next week, the girl brought him a giant tub of cookies. She wasn't the worst, but it was an incredibly unfortunate experience for the both of them. His first time having someone pass out, and her first time being defeated. That last line killed me because I forgot that the tattoo said undefeated. That's it for this video. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories. And if you like Am I the Genius, give Am I the Jerk a shot. It's linked in the description too. Either way, thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.